The part I laughed the hardest at was just this throwaway image of the marquee that said Too Short, Third Eye Blind, and Kehlani.
Yes!
Were playing. And I was like, if that ain't some perfect Oakland shit.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is episode 37, and I'm your host, Anita Sarkeesian. And I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts, Ebony Astor.
What's up?
And Carolyn Pettit.
Hello.
This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. Or, alternatively, we're the feminist killjoys coming for your media, depending on your perspective. In today's show, we're going to talk about the exciting new film out of Oakland called Blindspotting. And as always, we'll finish the show by all sharing a little something in What's Your FREQ-Out. Exclusively for our fantastic backers, we've got an action-packed bonus segment. If you want access to our bonus segment and other fun perks, join our podcast community at d.rip/femfreak. Now on with the show. What's up?
It's Monday.
Yeah,
I don't know. Do people know this? Have we pulled back the curtain on this that we record on Monday morning?
Oh,
Actually, I
just
tweeted
revealed a
about
little.
it this morning, and I was like,
Oh,
hey,
you did.
About to record the Fem Freak podcast.
Yeah.
What bullshit am I going to say this week? No one knows.
Yeah. Well, we all always look forward to finding out.
Me too, because it's a mystery to me as well.
I think there's a, like our fan wiki, the Feminist Frequency Radio fan wiki. Like, there's a running tally of facts Ebony gets wrong in each episode.
And that
it's just
section just keeps getting longer and longer. Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to the people who are maintaining that.
The diligent people who scour every episode looking for incorrect things that Ebony says.
Yeah,
yes.
But for real, though, like, Anita got some random tweet from, one of the Twitterati talking about, like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I don't really, like, I listen to this podcast, although sometimes they drive me bonkers because they get a lot of geek stuff wrong. And
Wait, really?
Yeah, I remember this because I remember thinking, like, dude, we do get a lot of stuff wrong, but I was immediately fascinated. Like, I wonder what in particular set this dude off.
Okay, but we also don't get a lot of stuff
Well,
wrong.
that's it
No,
too,
because- Like, well, no, but in Ghost in the Shell, like, it's not really, like, she's not really taking an Asian role because she's, like, a robot who's, like, supposed to look white, but, it's not, you keep calling it something and it's not that at all.
Yeah, so I was just like, I wonder what it was. What was the, like, final straw for this dude? Or is he just hate listening every week, which, hey, thanks for boosting our numbers. Just to be like, they got this wrong, and they got this wrong, and they don't know this about the Star Wars Extended Universe, and they got that wrong.
I mean, the point here is that, like, women are unfairly the pressure on us to be perfect all the time and get everything right all the time is way higher than that of, like, men,
Absolutely.
right? And so, we probably get a couple of facts wrong occasionally, like everybody else who does who does live recordings of things and talks off the cuff.
I mean, I used to listen to the Giant Bombcast, very entertaining podcast with, like, Jeff Gersman and Brad Shoemaker and, other folks. And, like, those dudes don't know everything about video games. Like, and they will sometimes say stuff that's wrong, and nobody, like, pounces on them and is like, you fake game guys or whatever.
Show us your gamer cred
But
card.
this level of scrutiny on women when they talk about those same areas of culture is it's on another level. You're absolutely right.
I am right.
Yeah.
Take that, internet commenter.
Wow, getting something right to start off the show. We're doing good
Anita
so far.
1, internet 0.
That's right. All right, Carol.
Okay.
What's happened this week?
Oh, so much that I can't cover all of it, so I'm trying to pick and choose some of the gems. All right, so let's talk about, adventures in being black in Hollywood. A young... Yeah.
I'm sorry.
This is going to
be so good.
It's a comedy cavalcade, Ebony. It's not at all, unfortunately. But so a young actor named Anna Diop. Her last name is Diop. I've never heard it said out loud, so I don't know how to pronounce it. I apologize.
I believe it is Diop.
Okay, it's what Ebony just said. She has been cast as Starfire in a TV series called Titans. It's a DC series, and Starfire is a DC Comics character who is like orange. She's like an orange alien. As Alex Abad Santos describes her in a piece for Vox, Starfire is a female alien with creamsicle-colored skin and a mane of scarlet hair. Anna Diop, the actor, is black. When, after a trailer was played at Comic-Con this past week, a resurgence of racist anger and hatred about this black woman playing an orange alien comic book character flooded her Instagram feed, and she has since shut it down, and I think has minimized her social media presence in general. And this is not, of course, the first time something like this has happened, but it really makes me think that when white, and I'm speaking in broad general terms, but the sort of people who would attack her over this, when those particular white comic book fans read a comic book and they encounter a character like Starfire, who again is an orange alien, I really
sorry, what color is she?
A creamsicle. Creamsicle. I really believe that on some level, unconsciously, they sort of imbue the character with an intrinsic kind of whiteness that, and they other black people and other people of color to such an extent that casting a person of color in that role, is jarring and wrong to them, even though the character is not.
Which is hilarious because oftentimes the metaphor of the alien is of the other.
Yeah,
so
right.
it has its own problematic shit.
Sure, totally, but it would make sense to think of an alien as not white, as an other of some, whatever intersection that might be. But also, we see this over and over again with different, especially books that turn into movies where the reader just assumed a character was white, whether the text said otherwise. And so, remember with Hunger Games, and I'm totally forgetting the actor.
Amanda Stenberg. Amanda Stenberg.
Yeah, and we see this, and that's not the most recent example, but it happens again and again.
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing. You've got a multitude of things going on, but, as Caro suggests, audience are so unaccustomed to having to, empathize with and being able to characters who are different from the white audiences, right? That they assume that if they like a character, that character must also be white, despite any textual evidence to the contrary. And because whiteness is given this kind of it occupies this default category where it's unraced, right? But it belies it speaks to this profound narcissism among white audiences that in the whole of the universe, the expectation is, these aliens might be alien, but they're white aliens, right? And I mean, as much as I love my foundational iconic geek properties, things like Star Wars and Star Trek and, Doctor Who, it plays upon these same things, such that the aliens that, the heroes come across are, to a greater or lesser extent, nevertheless, white-coded aliens.
The thing about this outrage bullshit that keeps happening every year, is it the same crew of people over and over and over again making a massive stink? Are we giving the harassment that it's a lot of people, right? Mostly men, but the harassment that they spew is aggressive and toxic and really difficult to deal with as the target of it and also watching it, but also it's the same people who are pissed off about the same thing again and again and again, and they're fucking wrong, and they're causing such a huge, they're causing so much pain and conflict conflict's not the right word. I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It's Monday morning. I'm tired, but it's just as we're sitting here talking about this, I'm every week I feel like we're talking about people being outraged at diversity, right, and inclusion in media, and it's the same fucking people again and again, and we're spending so much energy on these people because they are taking up so much goddamn space.
Yeah, they're sucking up all the energy and all the air in the room. One of the elements to this particular story about Starfire is that, and that's going, pretty unremarked, except among Black women, is the role that colorism is playing specifically. So, you have people revealing their discomfort with a dark-skinned Black woman specifically, playing someone who is, going to be a love interest, who is going to be a heroine, someone who's going to be a main character. And so you will have these people explicitly say, like, the issue for me is that she's so dark. Like, why couldn't they get a biracial actress or someone who's a bit lighter? Like, just straight up with that kind of, colorist, racist nonsense. And, as I said, unfortunately, I'm not hearing too many people who aren't Black women pointing this out, but it's something that is so rife and so endemic in Hollywood that for all the many gains that Black women may or may not have made in Hollywood, the fact is, for every Black woman you see, the number of dark-skinned Black women that you see, you can count on like one hand. It's horrible. It's ridiculous. And that's a huge part of the reaction that Anna Diop is getting, is that it's not only that she's Black, but that she is a dark-skinned Black woman.
Definitely, yeah. In better superhero news, exciting stuff for all you Marvel fans out there. Guess who's coming to the MCU after a massive merger deal between Fox and Disney? We've got Wolverine, Doctor Doom, Annihilus, the Sentinels, Mole Man, Magneto, Deadpool, Sabretooth, Galactus, Silver Surfer, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, Apocalypse, the X-Men, the Fantastic Four. Aren't giant corporate mergers the best?
Wow.
Like... Yeah. All of the, so many of the stories in comic book and geek sort of websites and spaces about this merger are just big celebrations of all the Marvel characters are coming home to the MCU, yay! And do you have any idea how awful these giant, increasingly massive entertainment monopolies, how bad this is? It's
and also if you want news stories, new superheroes, fucking good luck, because we're just going to be seeing the same characters over and over again ad infinitum.
I want to see a spoof skit of the meeting in which they discuss the different characters and who owns what and negotiating for certain characters, because that's got to be the dumbest shit to see, because it's all legal bullshit of but with these goofy ass names. I'm picturing that. It's just so
these men in suits probably have no idea who Apocalypse is, right? But they're well, how much money will we make? Right. how much mind share does Apocalypse have as a character? Do we want, whatever, those kinds of discussions about boiling these characters down to dollars and cents.
Yeah, totally. All right, should we head into the main topic for the week?
Yeah.
We're going to discuss Blindspotting, which is a film from Daveed Diggs and Rafael Casal. It's a comedy and drama that dives into gentrification and identity that is intensely rooted in Oakland. It is the most Oakland ever.
Didn't we have this conversation a few weeks ago? Didn't we already do the Oakland movie?
It is bizarre that these movies came out back to back that are both deeply Oakland, but
they're so different. I mean, they're so different.
We're talking about Sorry to Bother You.
Yes, a few weeks ago we did an episode on Sorry to Bother You, a brilliant sort of comedy satire set in Oakland, and this is a very different film that's also Oakland to the core, very vital, and they're both very much essential and worth seeing, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I've seen the movie twice, and I went to see it last night again, but Movie Pass was down, and I was like, well, fuck it. I've already seen the movie twice. I'm not gonna pay to see it again.
Yeah.
I fucking love this movie.
It's so good. I mean, so let's just lay the groundwork for the premise here a little bit.
Yeah,
is you have the two main characters. You have Daveed Diggs, who some may be familiar with because he was a star in Hamilton.
I think he won a Tony for that.
He won a Tony for Hamilton. So he plays Collin, and his best friend, played by Rafael Casal, who is named Miles. Rafael Casal, for those who aren't familiar with him, is white, and the film is so very concerned with the friendship between these two people who have grown up in Oakland together, and right from the very beginning, near the beginning, there is a scene in which the two of them are just kind of walking together, late at night, and they start like rapping and like dropping rhymes and like improvising, freestyling together. And I thought that is such a brilliant scene to establish for us like the depths of the friendship between these two characters. They know each other's rhythms. They've obviously been like, because the film cannot take time to tell the story of their developing friendship. It's like we have to go in knowing that these two people are like have been lifelong friends. And I think that initial scene, it does such a great job of establishing that for us as they freestyle about their lives, the job that they do together, like moving. They work for a moving company and stuff like that.
Yeah, and also the base here is that Miles, Collin, who's black.
Yes.
The race is really important, which is why Carolyn mentioned it. I'm repeating it.
Yeah.
Collin, who is black, has 3 days left on his probation, and Miles who's white, is just like a big fuck up and is kind of like always getting in trouble and kind of like you just think that everything is going to fall apart for him at every single moment. One of the things that I think this film does really well is it balances comedy and drama in what I think is very tightly woven together, where like it is a serious film about serious stuff and it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and they're able to bring in and poke fun at a lot of things while also like being like, yeah, gentrification sucks. And like we don't know who we are in these spaces and we're just trying to get by and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And an essential part of the plot too is that very early on in the film, it's not a spoiler, Collin witnesses while he's alone, like driving back to the like halfway house or whatever you call it, like while he's the place where he's still staying while he's on probation, he sees a black man get, shot in the back by a police officer, shot and killed. And it obviously like shakes him, to the core, but he is a black man himself with like, again, 3 days left on his parole. What power does he have to do anything with that information, right? And the news stories about the killing, like, they don't. At one point, Miles is at home watching the story on the news. The victim is shown in like I think orange prison garb or something, and like depicted as a criminal. Like Miles comments like, "Oh, how disrespectful of them! They couldn't find another photo of him than that one." And, he kind of sadly comments, well, no protests for you, homie, or something like that, because like there's no outcry about this particular incident. There's nobody there who saw it except Miles.
No,
Collin, except
Sorry.
Collin. I know I keep wanting to mix up their names too, except Collin. And so, nothing is done about this terrible crime committed by a police officer. Ebony, did you see the movie?
I am here. I didn't want to step on anything. Yeah, So I saw the film yesterday, and from the very beginning, Carol, you and I have talked about this a little bit on Cinema Ball.
Cinema Ball, hey!
But I am so grateful for and in love with directors who know how to light brown skin. So there's that magical scene, which is, meant to evoke a kind of, otherworldly space when Miles, Collin, and their friend, whose name I'm forgetting, in his like high rider car are, just lit by this beautiful kind of like interior blue and purple neon light. And, they're skinning up and they're eating from the newly gentrified Quick Way burger stand. And it's just this hilarious moment among friends, right? But I wasn't even paying attention too much to what they were saying because I was just so in love with how beautiful Collin and his friends' faces looked it's so rare that Black skin gets the opportunity to shine on screen, to be just fully three-dimensional on screen in the same way that like it's so rare for Black characters to be fully realized on screen and on our narratives. So I mean, just from the very beginning, like I was so excited. You know, when you know that like you're in the hands of a director and a cast who intimately know you know, how to kind of fully flesh out a person, a place, a moment. You know, I was on board from the very beginning. I have to say, though, as the movie progressed, I found myself, because I'm a hater and because I'm a profound misanthrope, I found myself caring less and less about Collin as a character. And I hate that I'm even saying this out loud, because y'all know Daveed Diggs and I have been happily married for 10 years now. He is my love, my husband. Never want to say anything against him. But I found myself being so annoyed by him, partially because of his age. I'm not sure what age his character is supposed to be, but the kind of like naive way hesitant way he moves through the world rang false to me at moments, because I thought like, dude, you were born and grew up in Oakland. There's no way any of this would just be being born in upon you now. You know, there's no way you would need your girlfriend, your mother, you know, someone at a party to kind of emphasize these points to you, such that, you know, it's just hitting you now in this way at this age. Like there were parts of it where I was just like, this would have worked better for me if Collin was more clearly presented as a character who was like, you know, 21 or something, as opposed to late 20s.
I wonder if some of that, you know, so they actually wrote the screenplay when they were young.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah, the two of them are actually like lifelong Oakland friends, from what I understand. And yeah, they wrote the screenplay like 10 years ago, and like obviously didn't have the wherewithal then to get it produced. So
I mean, I'm a lot more forgiving of that, because that's just like trying to give information to the audience and like figuring out creative ways to do that. I think that I think Raphael did such an amazing job.
He was fantastic.
He was. I think that he really overshadowed Daveed Diggs in this film, and like they're both great, and
Sure.
I think they play off each other well. But like I think this is Raphael's like huge coming out in terms of like being a fucking star.
I hope so. I'd love to see him in more stuff.
Absolutely, and I think that his character was more entertaining to watch in a lot of ways because of which had to be because of who his character was. But he nailed it,
and I think that actually, it to some degree plays into the themes of the film. Like maybe because he's white, he has freedom to be bigger, you know, to draw more attention to himself in ways that, you know, might be dangerous for Collin.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, you know, Miles would be out on the street just like straight up hustling, whether it's the sailboat, which that whole scene was amazing, or when he's in the beauty salon, you know, trying to hawk those flat irons, which was a scene that worked a lot less well for me. But you know, yeah, he is allowed to be kind of like hyperbolic and draw outside of the lines in a way that, yeah, you know, like Collin knows he can't draw attention to himself in that way, both because he is like, you know, a big Black man with braids, which is, you know, a conversation they have later on in the film, but also because he is a convicted felon. Like he does not have the safety of navigating the world in the same way that Miles does. And so Miles has like these existential crises. And so he talks about like, you know, the effects of gentrification on his spirit, because he's like, yo, I'm from Oakland too. You know, like this is my home. These are my people. And yet to look at me, you know, I get, you know, lumped in with the gentrifiers, with the colonizers. And it's like, okay, well, cry me a river, Miles. But yeah, you know, like he recognizes in some part that like there's a performance element to what he does, because he wants his allegiances to be, you know, kind of clearly marked.
So I actually had my feelings about it are complicated, but I had some sympathy for Miles with regard to that, because so I think a lot of what this film is about thematically is the ways in which we are seen and the ways in which we are misseen, like the ways in which all of us, all the time, to some degree, people look at us and they see us in ways that are false, or they attribute things, based on sort of cultural baggage or what have you. There's a metaphor in the film of the image that, I'm sure we've all seen at one time or another, that you can either see like a vase or you can see like two faces kind of facing each other, but you can't see both at the same time. It's, this sort of optical trick. And like without going too much without going into like specifics, spoiler specifics, like there are genuine issues for Miles, who is like Oakland, right? He has been Oakland his whole life. And then, you do have like some tech people and stuff, gentrifiers coming in, adopting this kind of Oakland pride, right? Like to the nth degree, like wearing this kind of performative, like we love Oakland, and to the point where what sometimes can happen is that those people are seen as like the genuine article, like as far as like white Oaklanders, and whereas Miles is seen as, a quote unquote culture vulture, like that is to me so like thorny and complicated. And I don't know.
So I actually was like, I had issue with the fact that Miles was this white dude who's just like, I'm basically adopting all of Black culture.
Sure.
And I wear a grill and
Sure.
I talk a certain way and I dress a certain way and I'm, whatever. And I was like, what are they doing here? What does that mean? And I'm so glad the film actually deals with that,
Yeah.
at least to some degree, right? Maybe not to the same degree in which we would talk about cultural appropriation, but one of my favorite scenes in the movie is directly addressing and confronting that between Collin and Miles, and the tension between the two friends in terms of like how Miles gets away with so much shit and how Collin just wants to like be okay. He wants to not be. He wants to not have all of the attention that comes with being a Black dude with braids, or just a Black dude in general, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a scene where Collin is walking slowly. He wound up with a gun for, reasons. So he's got this gun, and if he's stopped by the police with a gun, obviously, like he's going to go back to prison, presumably. And I mean, you just feel the tension, like as the police are kind of scrutinizing him, and you cannot help but be aware that their reaction, it was
Miles's gun.
Miles's
so the idea
gun.
is that like if it was Miles walking down the street, the cop wouldn't have stopped him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or
So
wouldn't have considered stopping him.
Right. Well, that's why, I appreciate the way, the film is very nuanced as it kind of, unpacks the blossom of like Oakland and who lives there and who gets to inhabit what spaces. When it comes to Miles, a character that, again, I loved, but, the tension that exists within him about the way he's perceived, both by, residents of Oakland, like longtime residents of Oakland, and newcomers. I was like, yeah, dude, I get that you don't want to be perceived as a hipster. I get that you don't want to be perceived as, a gentrifier. I get that. But the consequences for you having to inhabit that identity and be perceived that way are much less than the consequences that exist for someone like Collin, right? So that's why, it wasn't that I wasn't, that I was unsympathetic to what Miles was expressing, but I do think that the film takes pains to point out that, like, it sucks for you, Miles, but then also, like going back to that crucial scene between Miles and Collin after the party. I don't want to spoil too much because I think it's the way the film unfolds such that, like, for instance, we don't find out why Collin is on probation. We don't know what his crime was until maybe the midpoint of the film. And I think it's crucial that we don't find out until then, because if we had known, we would understand his character a bit differently, But I think, Anita, as when you're talking about how Collin just wants to, exist and not constantly have a spotlight shown on him and have a role pre-written for him that he has to perform. Part of what didn't resonate with me about Collin's character is the way in which he was so profoundly reactive and seemingly unable to admit his own culpability. So at the end, when, he and Val, his ex-girlfriend, talk about their blind spots and her blind spot in relation to him, I was like, yeah, dude, I get it. But part of why you are where you are is because of actions you have taken. Not all of this was something that was put upon you. There was something so passive about the way he understood where he was. And I was like, no, there's a way in which you need to understand like your own culpability here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely, but I also feel like I also personally really value the film's what I see as part of the film's point about the way that we can reduce people when we look at them, like the way that Val has, since Collin went to prison and is on parole, like she has a tendency to kind of reduce him to a certain thing, right? When she looks at him and not see the full person. And that doesn't mean, to me, that doesn't mean that he doesn't bear any responsibility for that. Like he absolutely does. I love the complexity of this film.
I do want to talk about police.
Yeah.
So, Collin sees this cop shoot a black dude like right in front of him. And the other piece of this film is trauma. It's trauma. It's about like finding your voice, being able to speak your feelings and speak to other people.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. They were on Earth all along.
So spoilers for the very end, because I want to mention something specific here. At the very end, Collin happens to be in the house of this cop and is like, holy shit. And he kind of like gets really, really emotional and like really like traumatized and horrified. He's in the house. He's confronting him.
Yeah, specifically the cop who committed the murder at the beginning,
sorry if I didn't make
at
that
the beginning
clear.
of the film.
Played by Ethan Embry.
Is that who that was?
Yeah, It was. And so Collin does this whole thing, storms out, and Miles is just standing there looking at the wreckage of the what just happened. Nope, everyone's alive. Spoilers, already said spoilers. And the cop says, who's clearly upset about what he has done in the film. He's upset about what he's done. And he says to Collin, I didn't mean to. And Miles, Jesus, I'm sorry I can't get their names right. And Miles says, are you sure?
Yeah.
And that's it. So here's the thing about this, and what I want to bring up is that like it is critically important to not like humanize cops who murder like black men, black people on the streets. And so there's this moment in this where like it almost is humanizing him. And like I think the "Are you sure?" is supposed to indicate like, yeah, but you're still a part of this larger system. Like, are you like whatever? But I don't feel like I feel iffy about that whole thing.
See, I loved that it ended on the "Are you sure?" because
Well, I'm glad the "Are you sure?" was there. I just don't know if it was enough.
It was for me because we see more of the cop than just him crying and just his fear, and his guilt over the shooting, right? I mean, for me anyway, like the fact that his wife is leaving him and taking his child, I just felt like we were getting more of a picture of, a guy whose affect in his world maybe isn't the most stable, And so to have that quiet rejoinder from Miles worked for me to offset the dude's tears. I don't know. For me, it worked, and I thought it was very important because I think so many times when this happens, the people responsible are like, we were afraid, we would never have done this, in hindsight or whatever. And it was like, no, the end result of, the system of policing that we have is always the murder and eradication of people of color, of people from vulnerable communities. So like, I don't know, it worked for me.
Yeah, I I really wish we hadn't gotten those shots of him like crying. Like I don't give a fuck about your tears. And like he has like a Blue Lives Matter placard in his garage and everything. Like he obviously does not fucking get it like at all. I mean, like obviously just the fact that he committed this horrible act communicates that. But then, like, yeah, I wish that it had not even humanized him to the extent that it does, personally.
Or if they had just not said anything. Like, the guy didn't say... Like, if the cop hadn't said, I didn't mean to. Like, if he hadn't said anything, it would have also been different.
Yeah.
Right? But we get to hear him say, I didn't mean to. Which are we supposed to take like, we watched him do it.
Right.
Right? Like, so we know that he did it, and there wasn't a need for it.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about all of that.
To the film's credit, and I don't want to be specific because I think it's so powerful in its kind of spontaneity, but there is an image like very late in the film that drives home the toll of the human toll of violence that has ravaged Oakland. And it is like, so to me, that was just so devastating and so powerful. I was really grateful for the film to acknowledge the larger issue of that in this story about Oakland.
Before we wrap up, I do want to talk about women. So I think with both Sorry to Bother You and Blindspotting, women are not very important in the film. And like, that's part of me is like, that's okay because it is a film about a specific story and whatever. But also I just kind of want to acknowledge that, like, they play a very small role. And so Val is played by Janita Gavankar, who I'm going to say is a friend of the podcast, even though she's never been on it, but I'm going to get her on it one day.
What, you can do that? Right. You got that kind of hand?
Yeah, nice. She's a friend of mine. If you're in gaming, if you're in gaming, you would know her from playing in Battlefront 2. She played Urso.
Oh my God! Of course, I didn't even make that connection.
She was on like 2 E3s ago. She was the host at E3 wearing that amazing dress.
I didn't even realize that was her. Oh, wow.
But and then Ashley was played by Jasmine Cephas Jones, and I didn't realize this until I was at an event for the film, and someone was like, "Don't you think it was weird that Ashley's character, who Ashley is Miles's wife, and they have a kid together?" She's like, "Don't you think it's weird that you only ever see her in the house?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I didn't even notice that because she was so good. Like she was so good in that role, but like." The women are periphery. They're just there for like...
Yeah, I mean, it is another film. And again, I like this film, but it is another film in which the women, whether it's, Collin's mother, whether it's Val, whether it's Ashley, are, tools for the male characters to achieve some sort of like, psychological rapprochement or some sort of emotional growth, but as characters are in their own right. And also, again, let me just say, I'm getting a little bit tired of films in which I am supposed to take a journey with a male character who needs to slowly come to some sort of realization about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm just like, I'm tired, y'all. Also, can I get some dark-skinned sisters up in a film about Oakland, please?
Yeah.
Well, it also bothered me that Val was like, she was trying to take away Collin's blackness. Like, she was like, you got to change your hair. You take out your grill. You got to this. You got to that. And I'm like, that's not the problem. Like, Val's role is to, like, sometimes Val says things that are useful and smart, but it felt a lot like Val was trying to be like, you need to be more white. And you need to be, and not that Val is white, but like, that you need to be more presentable to white America.
It's very much like, like a kind of respectability politics. Like, your blackness is not the problem. It's the version of blackness. Although I have to say, I do think that the film itself traffics in that a bit when, in that crucial scene, again, with Collin and Miles, when Collin is telling him, I was like, call me a nigger. And he's making this point that based upon like actions alone, Miles himself is the one who should be considered nigger. And I'm like, no, the category itself is fucked up. Let's start there. You know, like it's like that old Chris Rock bit. Like even black people hate niggers. It's like, no, that shit is problematic on its face. There's no like category of nigger that is inhabited by anyone. We need to all, you know, get divorced from that shit. You know, so I think there's a way in which the film itself kind of, you know, plays with that kind of respectability, you know, politics. Like there's a set of behaviors that are not right that, you know, have been coded a certain way, and we don't want to do that. And that has been a very racialized category.
Yeah, totally. All right. One last thing I want to say real quick is Utkarsh Ambudkar. Sorry, he's
price
in it for
of
one
admission
scene.
Alone. That scene, price of admission alone.
His scene. So he's the one that tells you why Collin was arrested and thrown in jail. And I found out, so after you watch this, you're going to be like, holy shit. I found out that that scene, he like 90% of it was improvised.
Holy
like
shit.
He just fucking freestyled that whole thing.
Oh.
And it's so good.
It is
so good.
So magical.
So shout out to him. Yeah, go check out Blindspotting, support the film. It's, you know, we are media critics. We're going to be critical of it, but it's still really good.
And
definitely
yeah, I mean, it's complicated in worthwhile ways, right? Like it's got so much going on, and even if some of those things are flaws, they're interesting, thought-provoking flaws, not like...
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those films that's an important film that's also really entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Like, go fucking see it.
I don't think we didn't say enough about how funny it is.
It's so
I
funny!
really quickly want to mention, so Ebony mentioned how they have the food from, like, the quick way, like the newly gentrified quick way, and, like, there's a point at which, like, damn it, Miles is, like, has a burger, but, he's eating, and it's, like, but it's a vegan burger, and he's like he gets upset, and then you hear an employee be like, "Oh, sorry, did you want meat? You have to specify that you want meat." It's like if everything's like flipped around it's now to like.
I have to say though that like the part I laughed the hardest at was just this throwaway image of the marquee that said "Too Short," "Third Eye Blind," and Kehlani.
Yes.
We're playing. And I was like, if that ain't some perfect Oakland shit, I don't know what. Like, it was so spot on. Spot on. Yeah. Oh, my God.
It was real good. All right, go check out the film. It's in theaters now. It's great. All right. Do we have a jingle for What's Your Freak Out?
Well, we've had songs at times when you have sort of freestyled a little.
No, Ebony has.
There was at least one time where you did, and then Phil lay down some rhythms.
Saying, I think we need a transitional song, a little ditty,
okay.
a little.
All right.
Damn it! What's your freak out? Damn it! What's your freak out?
We're going to lay down something that Phil can lay down some tracks that Phil can work with. Just
drop some
bars. We got to get Utkarsh to do some freestyling for us on this podcast.
There you go.
Okay, Carolyn, what is your freak out this week?
So my freak out is a manga called My Solo Exchange Diary by Kabi Nagata. Previously on the podcast, long ago, I believe, I talked about a Kabi Nagata's previous book, the one that really put her on the map and kind of exploded in the public consciousness, which is called My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness. And this is a follow-up to that, a direct follow-up. My Solo Exchange Diary. The title, My Solo Exchange Diary, refers to the fact that it's based around a diary that she writes back and forth to herself. But what these books do, that to me is so powerful and extraordinary, is they really, really just lay bare the experience of profound loneliness in all of its emotional and physical and psychological pain. The narratives are very specific, like that they're autobiographical. She draws very much from her own life. So in My Solo Exchange Diary, there's a lot of stuff about how the success of my lesbian experience with loneliness did and did not affect her life. And and stuff with her relationships with her parents. It gets into family trauma and expectations, but really, like, she just has, I think, a gift for writing about and illustrating, of course, because they're manga, like, for illustrating the experience of loneliness at its kind of deepest and most sort of debilitating and intense, and it's, there's something kind of cathartic about it, but there's also, it just cuts right to the heart of that experience, and in a way that's welcoming. It's humanizing. It's vulnerable. That's my freak out. My Solo Exchange Diary by Kabi Nagata.
Nice. Ebony, what's your freak out?
So last week, I think it was last week, I mentioned that I am a hardcore romance fan. And so since then, people have been hitting me up and we're like, oh, I hear you write romance, like, where can we check it out? You can't check it out nowhere. It exists in my Google Drive. That's it. But I do read a lot of shit. And so my freak out this week is a shout out to Rebecca Weatherspoon, who is an amazing writer. The tagline for her website is where the happily ever afters are always in color. So she also maintains, the Women of Color in Romance blog. She is a Black woman. She's amazing. She's got several series that I love. I want to particularly shout out her new adult paranormal queer romance erotica about vampire sorority sisters. What? Like, y'all.
I mean, those are a dime a dozen. Come on.
Like, I can't even just explain to you, like, how much I love Rebecca Weatherspoon. Like, shout out to her. But she's got something for everybody. She's won multiple awards for both her, like, BDSM series, for her queer series. She just writes amazing women-loving women. I can't say enough. My freak out, Rebecca Weatherspoon. Love her. Mwah, smooches.
Awesome. Okay. I have 3 freakouts that I'm going to do very quickly.
All right.
Because, humble brag, I left my house. And I went to things.
Big brag.
All right. First one, I mentioned before, Marcela Arguello is a comedian. She did a couple of shows here in San Francisco to record her new album. It was fucking great. She is amazing and hilarious. So, one, check her out. Go to her shows. Check out her album when it comes out. Also, friend of the podcast, Irene, too, was opening and emceeing that night, and I had no idea until I got there. What? So that was a delightful little moment. Marcella is at Marcella Comedy on Twitter, which we will link. Second event I went to, the very next night, man, I was real tired.
What?
Too much going out. Lucy Bellwood is a cartoonist, and she did 100 days she did 100 days of comics about imposter syndrome that has been collected into a book called 100 Demon Dialogues. She's doing a big tour, so you can check that out. The book is really good. Like, I think we all deal with imposter syndrome. It's something that comes up all the time, and so it's these visuals about this thing that a lot of us feel and experience, I think, is really valuable and great. So the other thing is that she has a little demon in her comics, and you can buy the demon plushie, which I sure did. So I highly recommend checking all of that out. She's at lucybellwood.com, and you can buy her book and plushie and all of that, and you can find out her tour dates. Third, new hip-hop album by Marlo, who the album it's called Marlo, by Marlo. It's a collaboration with L'Orange and Solemn Brigham. I have no idea who any of these people are. I'd never heard of this dude before or these other dudes. It's good. I like it. It has a lot of like Madlib influence on it. So if you're into hip hop, check that out. Wow. I did it fast. I did my 3 fast.
Bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam. You know how sometimes I got nothing and then I got too much? Anyways, but we have an extra special freak out because y'all have started sending us your freak outs. So this week we are going to get that started by playing a freak out from Jamie Jeans.
Hello, Ebony, Carolyn, and Anita. I'm Jamie Jeans, and here is my freak-out for this week. It is Game Devs and Others, Tales from the Margins, which was edited by Tanya DePass, who currently works on the Spawn on Me podcast, but is best known for the creation of the I Need Diverse Games hashtag. It is a collection of stories and essays from a diverse group of people who talk about how they come to love games, play games, and develop games. There are a number of themes throughout the book that I really enjoyed digging into, such as the frustration over being in an almost entirely straight white male environment, the determination to carve out a space for yourself no matter what, as well as hope for the immense potential of video games as a storytelling and entertainment medium. So please buy this book. It's great.
All right, you can submit your own freakouts by going to feministfrequency.com/freakout. That's feministfrequency.com/FREQOUT. All right, y'all, that's our show. New episodes come out every single Wednesday, and we're going to be talking about Mission Impossible, BlacKkKlansman. I don't know how we're supposed to say it.
It's just black. It's just black.
You weirdo.
BlacKkLansman. BlacKkLansman.
But it's got to be like BlacKkKlansman.
BlacKkKlansman.
Y'all so white.
Black
Can I just say that, like, they showed the preview for that, the trailer for that before I saw Blindspotting, along with a Tyler Perry film, something else.
Yep.
Like it was pretty much like all blackness. It was great, right? And the audience that I was watching Blindspotting with was primarily white. I might have been the only person of color in that entire audience. And 2 white people got up and walked out.
What? During
know.
the trailers?
No, during the movie, But I was like, from
up.
the trailers to the film, it was too much.
Maybe they were sick or something.
Nah.
I gotta say, I know we're at the end of the show, but I saw Blindspotting for the premiere in Oakland at the Grand Lake, and I'm just saying that was like the way to fucking see this movie with like all the people who made it. Humble brag, not a humble brag. I was really stoked to do that. We're also going to talk about Crazy Rich Asians. And these are all the movies that we're talking about coming up
next week. This is over across the next few weeks. Next week specifically, if you want to be down with what we're talking about on that show, it's Mission Impossible Fallout, right? That's what we're doing next week.
I just want to let y'all know what's coming up so you can be ready.
No, that's great.
You can go check it out.
I just don't want people to feel like, should I have to go watch 7 movies to be prepared for next week's Feminist Frequency
Nope, just
Radio?
watch Mission Impossible, about which I saw someone on Twitter saying that Henry Cavill looked like if Tom of Holland had an office job. And I got my entire life, so...
All right, y'all. Remember that we need your help to keep making this show, so please support us at d.rip/femfreak. And if you enjoy this show, please rate and review us on iTunes. And tell all of your friends when you're out with them at places that are not your home. You can check out all of our work and our other podcasts at feministfrequency.com. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at FemFreak and on Instagram at FemFreak to stay up to date on all the news. You can find me at Anita Sarkeesian.
I'm at Carolyn Michelle.
I'm at Oaktown 357.
Our producer is Phil Circus, who also composed our theme music. We'll see y'all next week.
Later.
Bye.